The Bills only had two captains each of the last two seasons. What does that look like moving forward under Joe Brady? We're going to discuss that right now on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, host of Locked On Bills. That's Jerry Ostroski, 102-game starter for the Buffalo Bills. And we'd like to welcome you and thank you for tuning into this episode of Locked On Bills. Locked On Bills is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Well, folks, welcome in Joe and Jerry back again for our new episode that will be daily, as we talked about yesterday. You're still getting the same 30-minute episode from me every single day. That'll drop later on Tuesday. Bill Squad, that's still happening every week, twice a week, the hour-long roundtable discussion with us plus Jeremy White. And now a second episode of Locked On Bills for you daily with myself and Jerry Ostroski. And what we'd like to do with a lot of these episodes is kind of leverage the outstanding herd mentality questions that get sent in and answer them as part of, standalone kind of daily episodes. And so today's episode of me and Jerry together will feature two herd mentality questions that were sent in. The first one will cover the captain discussion, and then we'll talk about Josh Allen's contract and, what does it look like? How does it make the rest of the players feel that he gets paid so much money? So we'll do that in segment 2. But let's start with this question from Derek, who says, I'm curious about your thoughts on the captain situation this year. New head coach, new approach, new stadium. It just feels like a lot of new. I have questions about how Terrel Bernard is perceived. If he's not the best linebacker and may not play as much or as critical a role, is he the green dot and captain? Do we stick with two captains? Do we go back to 4 to 6? So, Jerry, obviously, new regime, new situation. The Bills have only had two captains each of the last 2 years, Josh Allen and Terrel Bernard. And that's probably going to be different this year. What's your overall vibe on just the leadership structure that you're expecting under Joe Brady?
I mean, just because you're a captain doesn't make you the team leader. I mean, obviously, there's some positions that automatically get the C, being quarterback, right? If you got a quarterback that's viable, that's been there a while, he's going to get the captaincy. That's how it's always been. When I played, it was always 3 captains. Actually, it was 4. You had an offense, a defense, a special teams captain, and then you had a floater captain. So every week they would let one of the guys go out and go to the coin flip or whatever and do those things. So, you can look at it different ways. I think that captaincy maybe nowadays doesn't quite have the luster on it that it had in the past because of some of the things I just talked about. But when I look at the defense and I look at Terrel Bernard, I mean, obviously, if he's not out on that field and he's not playing, that's a problem, And how do you get around that? Because really, what the captaincy says on defense, if you're the captain, is if the official is talking to the players or whatever, he's talking to Terrel Bernard. I mean, that's what a lot of that is. He is the guy that handles those things on the field since the coaches aren't on there. So I don't know what we'll do with Brady. It'll be interesting to see. I think he'll have more. I think more is better, but I don't think a huge amount. Like I said, I like 4, definitely 3, because you want a special teams guy as well in there. And obviously Josh is a fixture. So we'll see what happens on the defense.
What, from your experience, is the captain selection process? We know that the players vote on these things, but what does a ballot look like? Do you write down your choices? Like, do they say we're going to have X amount and the top X amount of vote recipients get it? Like, how does that work?
Well, you have 3 different ways to choose captains. One is a true blue player vote, where the ballots that are counted, whoever has the most is a captain. You have the perceived player vote, which is
Sure.
The coach lets the players vote, and then he picks who he wants, but makes it seem like they did. And then you have the coach that just picks who he wants. And I would imagine that's probably what McDermott did, I would think, especially if they only had 2 captains. I'm not sure how that whole thing went, but I'm sure he had something to do with it. But anyway, those are the 3 ways to do it. I would think that, in Buffalo, probably players and go from there. I mean, that's kind of how it's done. I mean,
yeah. Well,
those three ways.
If you do have a true selection process through a vote from the players,
right.
I think where that gets a little bit tricky is I'm guessing there will probably be a couple players that would stand out with a lot of votes, but
right.
I don't think you should marry yourself to a certain number because the range between 1, 2, 3, and 4 can be pretty significant.
Right.
Where the third and fourth guy or the fourth and fifth guy, they just don't really claim as much, but somebody has to be fourth or fifth. Like you'd want this to be truly representative of what the players would want. And I think that's where I would kind of defend Sean McDermott is that he didn't get enough votes to truly have 3 or 4. Then you stick with 2, but obviously it could just be McDermott saying these are the 2 players that are going to be captains.
Well, what the players always want is not always the best thing.
Sure.
That's the other thing.
Sure.
I think they did very well in Buffalo. Do you know? Did the players vote for it in Buffalo?
That's what they said. Yeah, that's
what they said.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the representatives that they picked were true to who they probably should have picked. But there's a lot of cases that the guys that are chosen don't need to be the captains. But in this case, in Buffalo's, those were fine. But yeah, I mean, I can't see. I don't think this is a case where Terrel Bernard was captain because he was boys with McDermott. I think he did have a lot of clout with the players in the locker room and things like that. But, a big part of it's going to be you got to be on the field. And we have yet to know what's going to happen with Terrel Bernard in this defense and where does he fit and is he going to play a lot? So I think it has a big, let it play out and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm curious to see. The challenge with Terrel Bernard is if you want to move on, you're from a contractual perspective, you're not in a really flexible spot. And so It almost feels like the Bills have to make it work. And he's played in a 3-4 defense. That's what he did in college, but kind of like as a gap shooter, blitzing type linebacker. And so I am curious to see how the Bills move forward, trying to maximize what they can out of a commitment that they've made, right?
Right.
Hopefully he can get healthy and get back on track and that this year can be chalked up to, you were injured, but right now for all the extensions that Brandon Beane did last offseason, I think all of them have been really good except for this one. The Bills have a lot to figure out in terms of getting some value out of this extension that they signed and are in year 1 of in 2026.
And we don't know either. This may free him up. If you take a bunch of that, stop drop, zone stuff away from him and that deep Tampa middle, that deep Tampa 2 type coverage stuff away from him in this new scheme, maybe that frees him up to get back to being that downhill splash player that he was. So I guess let's get to the camps and see what happens with Terrel Bernard. Maybe we'll be pleasantly surprised. That this fits what he wants to do as far as being that athlete and getting downhill.
Somewhere inside of that body is the player we watched,
yes.
Back in 2023 that had 6.5 sacks and all the splash plays. Remember, these are the splash plays that Tremaine Edmonds never made. And now you hear people saying, oh, Tremaine Edmonds is going to get released by the Bears. Should we go back and get him? All right. Well, just signing up for different stuff, right? But
to make him again the guy that Jerry O once said was the most important player on the defense at one time.
Hey, we will see how this plays out. We will see how this plays out. All right, coming up next, we got a great question from Russ about just how much Josh Allen gets paid and kind of the impact on the team culture. We'll do that here in just a moment, so folks, be sure to stick with us. As the new year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one. Between busy workdays, cold winter nights, and packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference. That's where Home Chef comes in. Home Chef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated number 1 by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. And it's easy to see why. These meals are going to come ready to fit into your schedule. 30-minute recipes, oven-ready trays, or even quick lunches. They've got 30 weekly options to choose from, including family-sized meals and different dietary choices. Everything arrives pre-portioned, so there's less prep, less mess, and no wasted food. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering our listeners 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert. Have you ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? Well, FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. You use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right, the flight, the tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. I love futures this time of year, and whether it's picking a team to win the whole championship or grab a conference title, and adds that extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. And now, not only can your pick cash, it could also send you to the finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Joe Marino, Jerry Ostroski here for our new second episode every day of Locked On Bills. And like I said in the open, we want to use this as an opportunity to answer a lot of the herd mentality questions that get sent in. And so this next one comes from Russ. And Russ says, Josh Allen's contract is more than fair for his value, but I am curious if it affects another player's mentality or team chemistry when other guys are asked to take pay cuts when their salary is just a fraction of the quarterback's. All right, Jerry, you're uniquely equipped to answer this question. And you, your time in the league really was right when free agency was starting to be a thing, right? So we just accept that the quarterbacks get all the money and that's how it is, or is there a consequence to that?
Pretty much. I mean, it's kind of how it is. Do you want Josh Allen? You better pay him, or you're not going to have him very long. And no, I don't think that it depends on the player we're talking about. I mean, we're talking about Josh Allen. So, of course, the guys in that locker room understand. I mean, this guy is already they know that he's actually taken less than he probably could have gotten. I mean, it's not like he just holds the franchise hostage all the time and negotiate more money out of him. I think that's one thing about Josh that probably gets him more respect than most players, is because guys in the locker room know he's going to do what it takes to, help keep a couple of them around or get a couple of them a bit more money, So I don't think that's a problem with Josh. I mean, there's some other positions where there's guys that are making money. They're like, dude, you got to step up and play. They were guys that got after it, then they got their money, and then that was it. They shut down, and those guys aren't hard to see. They don't hide very well. So yeah, there's problems with that. But no, when it comes to Josh Allen, I mean, this is the guy that is pulling the trigger and the reason this franchise is doing what it's doing for the most part. So the guys don't get worked up. Now, they might get worked up if they're, leading the league in rushing, and then watch other players in the league make more money than them. Maybe they'll get upset with that. But
we're a couple years away. It's year one of the deal, man.
We're a few years away from that. But but no, seriously, Josh Allen, they're not upset about him.
So take us inside the locker room, or at least at this point in a season, right? Like, I think you guys probably are aware of, whose contracts are expiring and the reality of, that group's probably not going to be together again. But how much are players paying attention to this time and, the moves that are made to create cap space and, which players get extended? And, maybe you're a guy that just signed a deal and you're not really concerned about your own situation, but you're certainly paying attention to this. I mean, is this, how is this discussed among players?
It's really not. I mean, it's a very weird feeling. It's a very uneasy feeling. I mean, I can imagine the last pizza party that they had at Connor McGovern's house was probably almost a bit of a goodbye party as it was a let's have pizza and hang out party. I mean, guys know this is a business. I mean, that offensive line room knew all the way back at camp that there was going to come a time where quite possibly David Edwards and Connor McGovern could be gone. These things. They're unspoken things. It comes with the job. It's that almost a little bit of a spidey sense that you get. You know where everything is. I mean, if you don't think guys aren't evaluating things and looking at stuff, look at Alec Anderson and how quickly he signed his deal. I mean, he knew what his value was. He knew where he wanted to be and what was up. So he signed his deal and got it done and made sure he was locked in. So yeah, guys are aware of it, but it's one of those things you don't talk about too much. But like I said, I mean, some of the situations you're hanging out, especially towards the end of the year, you kind of know this thing's coming to an end and the run is over, so to speak.
I've only observed, but it feels like the NFL and the players that have played in the NFL. It's a very unique fraternity of human beings. And I would say overwhelmingly, it feels like guys are rooting for each other, right? And it's not like you're thinking, well, this player is paid, and so that means less for me. I think everyone's just kind of rooting for each other. Obviously, it's very, very competitive, but I think everybody wants everybody to get theirs as long as it's deserved.
There's no doubt. I mean, when you're in the brotherhood, you're in the brotherhood. It's part of it. And there's things that happen now with players today that bother me, like, bad things happen to players. Like it bothers me because we're all part of this together. We're all in this NFL thing together. And whether it was 25 years ago or was 25 days ago, it all fits. And you want these guys that are playing now that, you were the kind of, it's like I look back and I look at Reggie White and those guys were the pioneers for us. And then we made the money we had, and now we're pioneers for these guys today. And, I don't feel bad that Connor McGovern or David Edwards is going to make the money they make playing the same positions I made. I know back in the day when I was playing there, the money I was making, the guys before me, it was the same thing, right? It just kind of goes hand in hand. And they deserve it for what they put their bodies through, for what they put their minds and their families and everybody else through. They deserve it. And I hope they get it. I hope they get it all. And that's why you won't see, goes back to the Josh Allen question. That's why you won't see guys get upset because of what other guys are making, because that's what it's all about in the end of the day.
Yeah, and look, you even hear Brandon Beane will say from time to time, like, so when you're paying the quarterback what they're paying, it makes it more difficult. Or I've even seen some of the YouTube comments back to the episodes I've been doing lately about the challenges the Bills are going to have with filling all their holes and having to come to terms with not every single hole is going to be filled by this pristine, amazing thing. And there's going to have to be some concessions across the board. And I've even seen some YouTube comments back to me that are like, well, when you're paying the quarterback $55 million a year, like, that's the least of the Bills' problems. Like, the easiest money the Bills pay is what Josh Allen deserves, because if that guy's not part of this, it doesn't matter. Nothing matters. So, yeah, Josh Allen's like in his own world. I'm sure if you're part of the Buffalo Bills and you're a player or you're a coach or you do anything for the Buffalo Bills, you want Josh Allen getting his, and then you fall in line and understand that 17 is the franchise.
That's right. I mean, it's part of it. It's how it was when Jim played. It's how you have a team and you have a marquee quarterback like that. That's the going rate. And to be honest with you, look at the league. You don't even have to be a marquee quarterback. Some of these guys, you got a situation right now in Houston like that. Do you go ahead and pay C.J. Stroud all that money, or do you move them? I mean, there's people actually talking about trading them because all of a sudden Sam Darnold's made it cool. I've used this analogy before. It's like buying a boat, right? Don't buy a new boat. Wait for the guy down the street to buy it, and in 3 years you'll get the boat you want at a much cheaper price, right? Do you let another franchise take the quarterback early and do all the work and the depreciation, and then eventually you scoop up a guy and you win a Super Bowl with him, like Sam Darnold, right? So there's that theory as well. So I believe me, I'm much happier to be in position to pay Josh Allen $55 million. I'm okay with that.
That's the trucks or trailers conversation. You know what I mean? Like, the paying of the wrong quarterback is the worst thing you can do, right? Like, and teams have kind of got into that spot with Tua. It's a great example. You have, I mean, I hate to bring up like Trevor Lawrence because these are good players, but but that's kind of the conversation where you got to pay $55 million a year for them. Like, they do have to be worth that, right? So I think that's where maybe this becomes, a little bit more of a conversation. It's not the Bills and it's the Josh Allen. It's maybe the players in Miami where Tua's getting paid a couple bucks less than Josh Allen. You're like, well, you're not Josh Allen. We're not a very good team, and this is miserable. So,
yeah. And then I think sometimes those guys get more of the blame. I look at the Dallas situation with Dak Prescott. We want to blame Dak Prescott for everything when we realize the roster Dak ain't even close to being the problem. So
but he's getting paid $60 million.
Right.
And
so
they
all of a
can't
sudden
have
he's the
everything
problem
because he's getting $60 million.
Right. Exactly.
All right. Well, this has been a lot of fun, folks. Coming up later today, I will react to what we learned from Joe Brady and Brandon Beane at the NFL Scouting Combine. And then Wednesday, we're back with edge rusher discussion. And that second episode will come later in the day. So make sure you don't miss anything. Make sure you're subscribed. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills. And I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.